with
Good
Nancy,
afternoon.
Mental Health Director. Um, and I want to use this medium to welcome each and every one of us here today. It's a really great thing to have people so interested in gender based violence as it affects our society. And I want you to be patient throughout this entire session because I'm very sure there's a lot of knowledge to benefit from this. There's a lot to learn. Our speakers are one of the best speakers you can have on TBV, and I'm sure that if you pay attention, you would realize that there's so much to learn. There's so much about GBV that you do not know, and there are so many angles. There are so many sides to it. So we have four speakers. We have four speakers. We have Barrister Faith. We have Dr. Kilechi. We have Mrs. Bretta, and we have Mr. Esong. But before that, I'll be giving a slight introduction, and I hope you listen and you pay attention. So, as we all know, GBV is a ravaging menace enveloping our society today, far from the norm. Although some cases of gender based violence are often excused by tradition, and tradition has been in existence for a long time before development came in, before a lot of things were learned by people, that we decided to preserve the positive sides of tradition and um, do away with the negative. And a lot of times, it's not even tradition just affecting cases of gender based violence, it's people using tradition as an excuse, which should not be. And you know, it's so instead of swallowing hook, line, and sinker, whatever tradition or cultures um give at us, I mean, yes, we are supposed to do away with the negative and admit the positive. And um if you notice, we did a research, we sent out forms on gender-based violence where entries come in and all. We'll still give feedback on the forms during this meeting. But from the forms, you can see that the very hurtful stories of gender-based violence are cases whereby the victims do not even realize that they are undergoing any form of gender-based violence until it is too late. A lot of times, it's it's carried out by people that they trust, people that they are really close to, people that they won't believe will want to hurt them in any form or for any reason. So that's why we are here. We are here because one of the focal points of our dearest standing committee, Skora NIMSA. And for those who do not know, I will introduce our standing committee. Our standing committee on reproductive health and rights, including HIV and AIDS, is one of the 9 standing committees of our dearest association, the Nigerian Medical Students Association. And our focal points are covering anything associated with reproductive health, which include maternal and child health, any form of gender-based violence or gender-based identity, um, anything related to reproductive health, sexually transmitted diseases, and others. And like I said, we have the best minds in advocating against gender-based violence here. And if we pay great attention, we already know that yes, that this is going to be a fully packed session with a lot of knowledge, like I said. And it's already a great thing that we are here. It indicates that we are ready to stay dedicated in the fight against gender based violence. Our aim in Scora is to produce a world where everyone is sexually safe and secure in every form. That is including every form of gender-based violence, aside the ones that are very common. There are other forms, including female genital mutilation and the rest. So we are fighting against all forms of gender-based violence. And I want us to know that in this fight, nobody knows it all. And we all know that no man is an island. And we keep learning, unlearning, and relearning. So I call this a value packed session because I know how much knowledge is in store for us and it promises great things. So in the meantime, let's maximize the opportunity and learn as much as possible from this. Once again, my name is Wite Nancy Kosarachi, and I am the National Director, Standing Committee on Reproductive Health and Rights. Nigerian Medical Students Association. And I'm your host for this program. But halfway through, our moderator will take over. And I think I'll be calling our first speaker now, Barrister Faith Vin Wancho. And I will also be reading out her profile before we start, and I'll display it on the screen subsequently. Barrister Faith Vin Chizoba Wancho is a lawyer of about 20 years experience in litigation, prosecution, mediation, and development work, still serving in the Ministry of Justice, Ebonyi State, as gender focal person, and currently in the Directorate of Citizens' Rights. She has been in the forefront of the campaign for women's rights, gender equality, and good governance. She's an independent gender and development consultant, a trainer, facilitator, a human rights activist, and a community mobilizer providing pro bono services for the indigent people. Her significant contributions include: number one is being the coordinator, Gender-Based Violence Task Force, one of the best task force in Ebonyi State, and they are always active, always ready to help, always ready to proffer solutions to every form of gender-based violence. And they've been so amazing. They've reduced the amount of gender-based violence cases in Ebonyi State to almost a very minimal amount. And she has championed the campaign and advocacy to end female genital mutilation, which is a form of gender-based violence in Ebonyi State. She has also played a major role in the passage of the Ebonyi State Violence Against Persons Prohibition Law 2022 as amended. She's also the secretary to the state monitoring team on Ebonyi State VAP law enforcement. And she's the Ebonyi State NAWA coordinator and the representative of NAPTI State Task Force co-chair. So, like I said, we have the best minds here. So I'll be giving her the floor now, and she'll be taking over to teach us a few things that we would learn about. Thank you.
Is she speaking or is it just me? Nobody can hear anything. I don't know.
It seems she did not, she's not using her mic.
All right, sorry guys, I think there's an issue.
I'm talking now.
Okay, thank you,
Can you
ma.
hear me now?
Yes, ma, we can.
Hello. Yes. Um, I think that was a network hitch or whatever. Good afternoon, everybody. I want to particularly thank all the participants and indeed the national coordinator in the person of Nancy Mwite. I want to say that I am very, very delighted to be part of this afternoon's presentation. In this thing that we do, in the work of GBV that we are engaged in, we do a lot of learning, unlearning, and relearning. So this afternoon, everybody is going to be a participatory kind of event where everyone will be free to ask questions, maybe at the end of the presentation. And so I have been asked to be kind of mindful of my time. From what I have been given, I think I have just a few minutes to be with us. And so I will be running with what I have. Thank you. And so I have been asked to talk about gender, GBV, the basis of GBV and what the government is doing, government and its allied institutions. And so before I go ahead, I would like us to look at what this thing we keep talking about is all about. That is GBV. GBV, that is gender-based violence. Gender-based violence, as we all know, is a crime directed against a person on the basis of gender or sex, which constitutes a violation of human rights and therefore impacts negatively on one's ability to secure and enjoy their basic rights. You know, when one is not given the enabling environment to exhibit the person's potentials, the person rights obviously must have been kind of infringed upon. And so this form of violence comes under the umbrella of sexual and gender-based violence, that is SGBV as we know it. Violence against women and girls, that is VAG. It's part of them are harmful practices, that is, and a limitation of sexual and reproductive health and rights. It is not only physical. You know, at times when we talk about these things, we think that it's only when one receives a kind of punch from a perpetrator. No, it is not only physical. It's equally emotional and psychological. And it equally includes forms of structural violence, such as discriminatory. Like at times we experience this type when we see, you know, laws, when government makes laws and you look at those laws, you see that those laws are discriminatory against some genders. Like when some laws, they will say a police officer, when a police officer should not do this because she's a woman, a police officer, an unmarried police officer should not be pregnant. Do you get? And nothing is said about the man that has made her pregnant. So these things are structural, you know, they are structural discrimination given out by laws and practices which promotes gender-based violence. You know, oftentimes they are interrelated, originating from diverse social, economic, and cultural and political contexts. Women and girls constitute a majority of the victims of these forms of violence. Gender-based violence affects women and girls irrespective of their race. Some people will say that big women really don't go through this. In what I have been doing over time, I have discovered that everybody, every race, every color, like everybody can go through this if it is not checked. Like I've seen a lot of beautiful women, a lot of well-read, women being violated by their partners, both intimate and, other, even in offices and all of that. So it's not anything about a particular race, class, or any economic or educational status, or even religious. A Muslim can be violated, a Christian as well, even a Hindu, anybody, anyone can be violated. So GBV is therefore a continuum of acts that violate women's basic human rights. GBV is also said to refer to a range of harmful customs and behaviors against girls and women, including intimate partner, assault against women, child defilement, and rape. You know, when you talk about child defilement, you are talking about people that are under 18. You are talking about them being assaulted sexually. So when a child is assaulted sexually, that's is talking about what we call that one is a child defilement. Types of GBV. Violence is often associated only with physical violence, neglecting other non-physical forms. Violence is a complex issue, and categorizing different types of violence can never be exact. It can really, really never be exact. So that is it. I don't know. Are we hearing us? Hello?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes,
I want to know if we're on the same page. So before we go on, I would like us to talk about to talk about the forms of this GBV that we keep talking about. Violence is often associated only with, okay, that is it. When I want us to first and foremost pick the types and nature of violence. So according to the Council of Europe Istanbul Convention, they have outlined some of the following types of violence, which one is psychological violence, that is in Article 33, stalking, Article 34, physical violence, Article 35, forced marriages, 37, sexual violence, that one it talks about rape, female genital mutilation is 38, that is Article 38, forced abortion and forced sterilization, Article 39. Yeah. This takes me to one experience we had last year. Last year, we got a call that a girl by a nurse, a medical personnel called to say that a girl is in the hospital in her clinic, that the auntie and the auntie's brother procured an abortion forcefully on her, gave her some concussions. And so when she was done taking the concussion, the girl became sick and she became so critically ill that they came and dumped her in that clinic. And so on a Sunday like this, I was called. I arrived at the scene of that event, and I went there with police, and we arrested the perpetrator and the auntie, who we got them arrested, and the matter currently is being prosecuted. So the girl said they got her pregnant, and because they got her pregnant, they felt she was so low for the brother to get her married, or to have anything with the brother. So they procured the abortion on her forcefully. So another one is sexual harassment, Article 40, aiding or abetting an attempt, like in this case, where the auntie aided and abetted that act of forceful abortion. Unacceptable justification for crimes, including crimes committed in the name of so-called honor. And so using this as basis, we shall distinguish 5 interrelated types of violence, which is physical violence, verbal violence, including hate speech that we see a lot on social media, psychological violence, sexual violence, social economic violence. I remember speaking to some women last week where I and team had gone to one local village to sensitize them on the issues of VAP law. I remember telling the women that one thing that is bound to make a lot of women to be perpetrators and what do I even call it? And become kind of get what do I call it? Prosecuted for issues of violence against persons is the issue of verbal abuse. I was telling them that verbal abuse indeed is a very serious one. But it's just that the men hardly come to report such issues. And so verbal abuse, as it were, it's a very serious one. It's a very serious abuse against any gender. There are also 2 other categories of violence, domestic violence and sexual harassment, both of which may be a combination of all 5 types of violence that we have mentioned above. In reality, some or many forms of violence can be present all the same time. Like this one, when you see a woman that is being beaten, or you see a woman that has come to complain to you that the husband is fighting her right of procreation, like a woman wants to have like 5 children, and the husband is insisting that, no, madam, you must have like 9. One thing that comes up out of it is that reproductive rights has been infringed upon, but you see that other forms of violence like spousal battery quickly comes up to play. And so when a victim is talking to you about all these issues or one issue, quickly try to identify other issues of violence against her. And if you look at it, you will just discover that those things are real. Those things are real. And those other things are will come up to play. So all forms can occur both in private sphere, in families and intimate relationships, and in the public sphere, committed by either known or unknown persons. And so I have been asked to talk about how these things that we keep talking about, how the government has been able to do things about them, how the government has been able to make out their commitment in ensuring that GBV is curbed in our society. And one of them, I always say that there are 2 major things that the government has been able to do, which is number one is the issue of ratification and regulation, promulgation of laws and policies that safeguard women's rights in Nigeria. We have been able as a country to ratify some conventions that has helped us to mitigate or curb the excesses of the incidences of VAP, of a GBV in Nigeria. So the local ones, as we know, we have that of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. That is 1999 Constitution of Federal Republic of Nigeria. And that is section 17 of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, which says that that the fundamental objective of the state is founded on the ideals of freedom, equity, and justice. It safeguards against discrimination of the account of gender. Section 34, sub 1, also prohibits torture and inhuman or degrading treatment. And this one equally comes, this genital mutilation falls under this classification. Another one is Child Rights Act. This one makes provision on issues such as child marriage, betrothal, child labor, sexual abuse, sexual exploitation, trafficking, and prostitution. It was enacted. We got some news, about last month, that a woman came into some parts of Ebonyi State and packed about over 10 girls and took them to Akwa Ibom for sexual exploitation. NAPTIC currently, the case was referred to NAPTIC that is currently working on the issue. And so it was enacted in reaction to various discriminatory practices, treaties, and conventions to which Nigeria is a signatory. We have the African Charter on Human and People's Rights. We have the African Charter on the Rights and Welfare of the Child. We have a protocol to the ACHPR on the rights of women in Africa. We have AU Solemn Declaration on Gender Equality in Africa. We have Universal Declaration of Human Rights, and Convention on the Elimination of all forms of discrimination against women, CEDAW. We have International Convention on Economic, Social, and Cultural Rights. We have International Covenants on Civil and Political Rights. We equally have International Covenant on civil and political rights, International Convention Against Torture and other cruel, inhuman, and degrading treatment or punishments, Convention on the Rights of the Child, UN General Assembly Declaration on the Elimination of Violence Against Women, the Beijing Declaration and Platform for Action, particularly involving female minors. In Nigeria, we have a domesticated Violence Against Persons Prohibition Act of 2015, which is an improvement of the Penal and Criminal Code. We equally have Section 19 of the Acts, Section 19 of the Act prohibits spousal battery. We have Sexual Offense Act. We have Administration of Criminal Justice Acts, which we call AJA. We have Criminal Code and Penal Code. We have treaties and convention, which Nigeria is a signatory to. Which are the some of the treaties and the conventions are, as we have them: African Charter on Human and People's Rights, African Charter on, I have equally mentioned them before. And in states, we have, like in Ebonyi State, where I am talking from, and where the law, I am one of the persons that worked in getting the law, the bill passed. And actually the secretary, so the implementation of the VAP law, Ebonyi State VAP law is passed in the national, nationally we call it VAPA. In states, we call it VAP law. So in Ebonyi State, we have what we call VAP law. Our VAP law was passed in 2018, sorry. And because we were able to see some lacuna that was not allowing us get to the victims, get to the perpetrators the way they ought to be gotten into. It was not allowing us get quick access to justice for the victims. So we quickly did an advocacy, and with the help of the Her Excellency, the governor, the governor's wife, we were able to get that law amended in 2022, and by as at July, between July and August last year, Ebonyi State VAP law was amended, and we are currently implementing. So the problem is that most of these treaties have been ratified, but we are yet to incorporate into our domestic laws as a country. And another thing that the government has been able to do is that the issue of budgetary allocation, that is what we call gender mainstreaming, because we know that the prevalence of GBV constantly calls for the need to enhance the government's commitment to gender equality for addressing women's priorities in planning, budgeting system, and programming. This aligns with Nigerians' obligation under international, because Nigeria actually have signed into all of these things, and without gender mainstreaming, without budgetary allocations to be able to do all of this, you will discover that we will really not be able to do a lot. For instance, Article 4H of the Declaration on the Elimination of Violence Against Women has mandate states, yes, state parties like Nigeria, to include in government budget adequate resources for their activities related to the elimination of violence against women. So existing national action plans aimed at tackling GBV, that is what government has been able to be doing. It has reinforced with proper allocation of budget funds, which stands as a reflection of the structures and systems adequately designed to respond to GBV. And this is why CSOs, allied support systems, so the government on curbing of GBV has been advocating that GBV be fully mainstreamed into the system, into the budgetary plans of every state, as our country has signed into as part of their commitment to fighting this menace. Yes, we talked about a plethora of laws that Nigeria is enjoying as a nation over the fight of GBV. The problem is that, yes, we have a lot of laws, both national conventions and the both international conventions and national laws and domesticated laws in our various states, like the issue of VAP law. VAP law has really been domesticated in so many states of the nation, like virtually every state. About 30 something, or if I'm not wrong, are currently about 28 or thereabouts states got VAP acts domesticated in their states. And the fact remains that actually, even though we have domesticated all of these things, we have, as a country, as state, we have been able to domesticate all of these things. But the problem is that we really don't have adequate financial backbone and the tools to adequately implement basic GBV-related laws and policies. Why I'm saying this is because we have really been able to do it. We really need a lot of adequate financial structure to be able to implement those laws that we have been able to put in place. I'm talking with respect to prosecution of GBV cases. We really need a lot to be done around that area. However, the government really have been doing a lot in this respect. The fact clearly speaks for itself, as evidenced in the annual budget, which provides little. They have been doing, but what we're saying is that is not yet enough. They have been doing stuff around that issue, but government has to do more. Because it's actually little or nothing for the sectors responsible to prevent, protect, and execute policies towards ending gender-based violence. These sectors, we talk about security, law enforcement. Law enforcement, at times you have a case and the police will have needs to go and make an arrest. And there will be no fuel, there will be no vehicle, they will tell you the tire is bad, they will tell you something has happened or there is no money for fuel and all of that. So you can see that those areas, they actually need to be handled. They really need to be provided for. And justice in the issue of prosecution of cases. We need money to be funds to be injected into those areas. We need health, education, women affairs, and other social services. Most of the available resources channeled towards the reduction of GBV are from international organizations and non-governmental organizations and private persons. Well, it's just that God has been helping us to leverage on what these individuals, persons, and international organizations make available for us. This equally goes to show the level of importance placed on the prevalent issues of GBV by the government. We are saying that they should really take this thing as a serious emerging issue I am happy a few days ago, I was reading through an article where the government says our president was saying that GBV, that the government has declared a state of emergency on GBV issues. And I am like, good, this is coming timely because indeed GBV issues are becoming, they're overwhelming, and it's important and it's high time it's giving such attention. Budgeting is essential, as we know, towards the implementation of extant laws and the fulfillment of the constitutional rights of women and girls. With the offsetting rate of GBV in Nigeria, the government ought to have a coordinated engagement with its sectors, agencies, and partners aimed at preventing and addressing GBV. Like, so many people, their laws currently, as they are seeing, they are equally seeing that those laws have need of amendment, but because of non-provision for all those things or paucity of fund, they have been been left to be managing those poor laws like that. So governments really have to do something around that area. This level of engagement is with the goal of strengthening key government sectors through financing specific projects and programs for the effective discharge of their GBV duties. So that is it. We really need to engage the government like the CSOs are already doing. I really will not fail to keep appreciating the CSOs for their, I mean, when I say CSOs, I'm talking about the NGOs that work on GBV. They really did a lot when during the COVID, they discovered that during the COVID pandemic and lockdown in Nigeria, reports really showed that there were increase of GBV or kind of violence against women, especially in hard to reach areas. And so these organizations that were on the front line in their communities did a very beautiful one. They played a very key role in raising awareness about the increase in raising awareness about the increase in the cases of GBV. And actually, they provided support for victims of sexual violence through the storytellings, the way they worked with media houses and all of that, the print media and the social media and all of that. They were able to create huge awareness that led into what came out as because I could remember in those days, that was about 2-3 years ago now, so many hotlines we are giving out, like hotlines and website chat functions were set up. They were quickly set up to help citizens remotely. And because I could remember then my number was quickly made a hotline that everybody, everywhere. I could remember getting calls from across the country, all over, even beyond Nigeria, making reports about GBV cases that were taking place in all corners of the society. So I really applaud the CSOs for all that they did around that issues and within that period. So they really did a lot. So these are what those partners that we have, what they do along that issue. And it really paid off. It really paid off. Some of them really dialogued with the religious leaders and even the traditional leaders. They were able to tell them the challenges that people were facing, women were facing, because when they were setting up the COVID-19 committee nationally, government did not consider it wise to include women in that committee. And so even when women were given, even when organizations receive reports of GBV against any person, against any woman, any child around the corners, they were not able to move because they were not having the pass. You recall during COVID-19, people were given what they called pass. And because women were not, the actors of GBV were not included in that, that was why the issues of GBV were not timelessly handled. But thank God they had to do a quick one, and they were able to essentially give support for GBV survivors, and which we hope currently, that was why we were able to know and equally react to those issues. Today at the National GBV dashboard, people, the cases have really done what, has them gone very high. And somebody was asking me recently, why is it that Ebonyi report dashboard on GBV nationally, I think Ebonyi is about second or third at the national platform of GBV reportage. And I was telling them, no, it's not like it's a lot higher here. I think it's because people have been well sensitized, that they have now been able to say, to speak out. When we really need to, if we really need to do something around issues of getting justice for survivors, we really need to kill this, what we call a culture of silence. When culture of silence is killed, you will discover that everybody will be talking about it. People will speak up when their rights are being violated. People will speak up, and when they speak up and the prosecutions are hard and the justice are given, you will discover that it will bring the report or that incident to various minimum. We equally want to beg the government, as we are all partners. I believe that the reason why all of us are here this afternoon on this platform is because we have interest and we have passion to work on this channel to try and curb the incidences of GBV in our nation. So I am begging each and every one of us to really galvanize advocacy efforts. One of the things that I like doing a lot is making sure that anywhere I find myself, I speak, I sensitize anybody that cares to listen to me. So if we all come out in one voice and speak with one voice and being intentional, I keep saying that one of the things we need to be doing in this issue is to be intentional, to be very deliberate, I was in a program yesterday at Enugu. I was in a hotel and okay, not in a hotel. I was in an eye clinic where I went to pick my glasses. What is that, her name? Chimamanda was featured while she was talking on, I don't know, on, it's not channels, one international platform. And the men there were saying, oh, wow, such a big woman, such a great lady, such a great, and all of that. And I was looking at all of them. I quickly quipped. I said, you love her, right? And they said, who wouldn't love such a great woman like that? And I told them that we have billions of Chimamandas around us. And it's just that they are being put down. Men around them or people around them are not being intentional about bringing them up, making them live their authentic and authentic personalities or femininity as it were. And I quickly took the opportunity to tell the men that they have something to contribute to that drive. So my fellow participants, I want to tell all of us that we should be up and about in this drive and make sure that really that we support the government, even in the little we may think they are doing little. Let us make advocacies and make sensitizations around the whole area, and so that everything that we're going to be doing, the response, they have to be all inclusive, while addressing the issues of access to justice. We should equally address psychosocial support. We should equally address the issue of, so many things. The culture of silence in particular, we have to address that issue and make sure that when you see something, you must say something. Thank you for listening. Thank you. Thank you. Nancy, over. Hello. Hello.
Yeah, good afternoon,
Yeah,
everybody.
thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you so much. I personally learned a whole lot. Thank you very,
Mm,
very much. And like we all know, in this thing, like I said, we keep learning, unlearning, and relearning. So if you have
yeah.
any questions, please drop it in the chat box, and she'll reply as the session goes on. While
Okay.
you can just drop all the questions you have, please, so that it doesn't become rowdy. Thank you
Okay.
so much, Mascara loves you, and we
Thank
appreciate you
you.
so much. Thank you for being here. Thank you for granting us this privilege to listen to
Thank
you.
you. Thank you, Nancy. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you,
So,
Ben. Thank you,
okay,
Basi. Thank you, everyone.
please, everybody, drop your questions, and then I will send all the questions to her, and she will reply us before the end of this session. But meanwhile, our second speaker will be speaking now, and our second speaker, I'll be introducing her. Her name is Dr. Kelechi Okoro, popularly known as Health Athena. You've seen her on your Instagram, you've seen her on your Twitter, and she's here. She's a leading health advocate in Nigeria. So she's a game-changing medical doctor behind Health Athena Consults Limited, a dynamic and multi-award-winning brand that's on a mission to help people lead healthier and happier lives. With a massive following on social media, she reaches a lot of people, a lot of users with her engaging and relatable health information. Her impressive track record has earned her partnerships with top Nigerian and international brands. And as the founder of the Heal for Africa initiative, she's dedicated to transforming communities through health, education, and advocacy. Her groundbreaking project will pay attention to her parts, heal the slums, and SDGs people are making a significant impact. She's also the brains behind Health Hub Africa, a platform that connects health influencers, innovators, and startup founders to collaborate on innovative solutions for the health sector. And as the Chief Marketing Officer at Health Stack Africa, she's leading the charge in helping healthcare organizations leverage technology to deliver better quality care to their clients. But that's not all. Beyond the white box, that's in the hospital, like, and city development space, she's a passionate volunteer who hosts corporate events and partners with other non-profit organizations. So if you're looking for a healthcare disruptor who's not afraid to challenge the status quo, he's your go-to expert. Thank you very much, Dr. Kuleti, for joining us today, and we love to learn a lot from you. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you so much, Nancy, for having me here. And also, before Madam Faith leaves, thank you, Madam Faith, for your session. It was really insightful, and I mean, it
Thank
helps me not
you.
to just repeat every other thing you have said. You said quite a lot. You've covered
Thank
a
you,
lot,
Doc.
quite a lot. So I'll just leave the
Thank
things
you,
that you have
Doc.
said, and then I'll just
Thank you
delve
so
right
much.
into the online forms of gender-based
That's
violence.
fine.
And I mean, like, who best to talk about online gender-based violence if not me, a social media influencer who's using social media to promote health. And in the course of my work, I have actually encountered a lot of gender-based violence. I mean, stalking, all forms of violence, because I'm a woman and because I dare to have a voice and use social media for good also. And then a lot of other women have also experienced this same violence. And so I'll just delve right into it. Riding on what Madam Faith has said, I'd just like to add that gender-based violence is based on the fact that you feel like the next person is less of a person. You know, you're more powerful than the person, and the intention is to humiliate, okay, and make the person feel inferior or subordinate. Also, good to note that gender-based violence is not just perpetrated against women. Men also are victims of sexual GBV, right? Online. But women are more of the victims because of their standpoint to the society, because of how society have, tried to suppress them, even with laws, even with, representation at, policy, on policy tables and all of that, right? So I just talk about the different forms of online gender-based violence. It is anything, first of all, I mean, online, it is done online. And we know that from before COVID, the engagement online has increased. More people are using social media, and it means that more women are using social media. And it also means that more women are subject to online violence. And the types that we have is, can be perpetrated on Twitter, anywhere, social media, any social media, Facebook, WhatsApp, through emails, okay? Any form that is digital, they are perpetrated through those forms, through those online platforms. And examples are cyber stalking and harassment, right? People actually don't know that stalking someone on social media is a form of violence, right? You have an ex, and then you guys are no longer going out, and then the person starts stalking your social media, starts creating pseudo accounts to troll you and drop comments that will hurt you. That is a form of GBV, right? Cyber stalking, harassment, and then something as simple as calling somebody on video call, okay? You're calling a woman on video call, and then the first thing she's seen is your gondola. I don't know if anybody knows the meaning of gondola. If you know the meaning of gondola, please raise your hand or raise your mic and say it. I'm waiting. Say something. I want somebody to open their mic and answer me.
Yeah, I think that's, I'm not sure, but I think that should be the person's private part. I don't know.
Exactly. The male private part, right? So that is sexual harassment. That is that's a violation of your space. I mean, it's not solicited for. So why are you sending me nudes, unsolicited nudes? Why are you, calling me without a prior arrangement? Or I mean, I haven't said, okay, I want you to call me, and then you just call someone on video call in a compromising compromising scene. That is a form of harassment. Also, non-consensual sharing of intimate images. This happens a lot, right? Sometimes on the TL, a nude, nude starts flying. Somebody has posted a woman's nude on Twitter, on Facebook, wherever. And guess what happens? The woman is the victim and also the villain. Nobody's talking about the irresponsible person who posted those pictures, right? Everybody's talking about the woman in the picture, and that's like the highest level of irresponsibility as far as I can think about it. Taking just so we're clear, taking erotic pictures of yourself, taking images of yourself, taking nudes of yourself is not a crime, right? The crime is somebody else sharing it without your consent. In fact, sharing your nudes with somebody else is not even a crime, because I mean, if you're in a sexual relationship with somebody, if you're in an intimate relationship with somebody, it means that you trust the person and you are sharing. It's called sexting, or sex chatting or whatever it is called these days. I mean, they have different names for it, right? So that is itself, it's not the crime. The crime is sending it, the person you have sent it to, now sharing it without your consent. So why is the person in the picture or the video the villain, and then the other person who did this irresponsible act is absolved of any of any crime at all? So those are one of the ways that you can bully someone online, or sexually harass someone online. There's something else, body shaming, right? We talk about body shaming like it's just body shaming, but body shaming is what it is. It is an act of um, harassment. It's an act of gender-based violence on whoever it is who's at the receiving end. But it's really tricky these days, right? Because okay, so another form is objectifying women, making women seem like they're sex objects, right? That is a form of harassment. A woman posts a picture, even sometimes, I mean, I do videos, I do videos, I am fully covered. I'm wearing this video I did, I was wearing a turtleneck, for goodness sake, and what they call it now, joggers, and people were still making sexual connections to the post. And I'm wondering, I'm even covered. So why am I getting, this kind of, reactions from people? So that's it, objectifying women, and it's also a form. However, this part is tricky because sometimes we women, we actually make ourselves objects of, sexual objectification. I don't know if that grammar is correct, right? We see female content creators whose content is just, it's based on sexualizing herself, showing off her body parts and whatever it is. Now, that's why I said it's tricky. I don't know if it's okay to do that. I mean, if you're the one doing it to yourself, I don't know if that is okay, but it becomes a crime when it's the other person doing it to you. It's just like, black people, when we're joking with each other, say, hey, my nigga, my nigga, my nigga, right? But when a white person calls you nigga, it becomes a problem. So I don't know. That's why I said it's tricky. If somebody wants to say, if somebody wants to agree or disagree with this point, it's okay to just do that in 1 minute. No, 30 seconds, and then we can go ahead. So I'm sure that we're all carried along this conversation. So one person. I'm waiting. Nobody.
I
I
don't feel like it's
okay.
okay to actually do it to ourselves, because like I feel like if you are doing it to yourself, you're like creating room for other people looking at you to do it. That's like what I see there.
Okay. All right, that's noted. So let's note that in case anybody wants to contradict what she has said when we're having the question and answer session, right? So another thing is um, hate speech, right? Hate speech is against women. This thing is it seems like a joke. Okay, we say men has come, women has come. Yeah, there's a lot of content around that, but in the real sense of it, that's actually a form of harassment. Without any provocation. You're just saying men has come, women has come, and you're going ahead to make misogynist comments about women. That's another form of online GBV. Okay. And it's something that is, I mean, some accounts are dedicated to pulling down women every single time, every single post. That's all they talk about. That's one form. Then trolling women. Okay. When men, it seems like it's actually a crime to be a woman, be online and have a voice. Okay, be a woman, be online and have a voice. It actually seems like a crime because you're doing nice things, you've been creating content. Then one day you just make a post that doesn't really sit well, with the general public or with the current trends, and then the first thing somebody is saying to you is Ashewo. Like, no matter what you do, no matter, in fact, you don't even, like, that's the first thing that comes out from from the male folks' mouth. Even sometimes the women do it to each other, you know, when they don't have any basis to troll you, the first thing they say is ashewo. That's the next thing. Ashewo, ashewo. That's a form of sexual harassment. I mean, you did not catch me in the act. And even if, yes, there are sexual workers who do sexual work as a job. So would you now go around now calling everybody ashewo just because they dared to actually have a voice? So I think I actually skipped one part. Who are the people who are susceptible to this form of abuse, right? Mostly, like I said, yeah, it's not gender bias. Males and females are affected. However, women are more affected. Okay, they are more affected. And the kind of women who are affected are women in public spaces, like somebody like me, who is an influencer, who has a social, media account, and I'm doing stuff with my social media. You say something, and the next thing is, go and marry. The next thing is, you're an ashewo. The next thing is, go and cook for your husband. The next thing is, your mates are having children. You don't have a children yet. You don't have a child yet. I mean, those are forms of violence. You know, those are forms of violence, and they shouldn't be allowed. Women journalists also. These women have voices, so they are prone to such attacks. Women rights activists, women rights defenders, people who have a voice and speaking for the voiceless, they also, face this form of violence online. Generally, women and girls, okay, and then also women or people who do not, conform to the normal, like the LGBTQ community. Yes, we know that being gay in Nigeria is a crime. However, it's a crime. I think it's a crime according to the law when you are caught, or when you are caught in the act, or whatever. I don't know what the law says, but really, there's a lot of discrimination. There's a lot of violence, against people who have intersecting identities: the lesbians, the bisexuals, the transgender women, even women with disability. They also experience some form of this violence, right? So, and how does the online bullying affect people health wise? Your health, your well-being. You're not even safe. It also impacts in your productivity, because I mean, if you have been trolled online, if you have been harassed online, if you have been sexually harassed online, if you're constantly, being harassed because of your voice and then called all sorts of names, it will reduce your productivity. I mean, you might even have a walk offline, and then you can't even have a voice because, hey, you have been sexually harassed. You've been dragged for being, a victim of sexual harassment, and then you can't go to work, you can't come out of your house. Your safety is even at stake because you dared to come out and speak up against somebody who has harassed you, and then your safety is not your safety is not guaranteed, because the person who is the villain is threatening, hey, if I catch you on the road, this is what's going to happen to you. And even people are supporting the fact that, why did you come out to speak? Okay, so now that takes us to the reason why these acts of gender-based violence online bullying and all the shaming is still a thing, and it's even getting stronger. And it's because of the silent culture, right? The shame culture, the silent culture. There's a post I made sometime, and it goes thus. I'm just going to try to read it here. I say that regret is a self-wielded tool that traps you in self-guilt and blocks you from moving on from bad choices. But shame culture is a treacherous tool deployed by society to further keep you wallowing in regret and doubt of self-worth. If you can control both, you can control your life. So usually the victim is shamed to silence, because if she even talks about it, can't you just keep it to yourself? Okay, so what do you want to do? And then they just further push you into, regretting, why did I even speak up? Why did I even seek justice? Okay. Another reason why gender-based violence online is still a thing is because of lack of education, lack of education, lack of awareness. Some people don't even know their rights. Okay, some people don't even know. Some women don't even know that if someone cyberstalks you, if someone sexually harasses you online, if someone sends you unsolicited nudes, it's a crime that is punishable by law. Okay, so if you don't even know this, you won't even come out to say this has happened to you. And even when you decide to come out to say this has happened to you, you need to know that you have done the right thing, and no matter what anybody says, you are in the right and you have the right to speak. Okay, and also a lot of women do not know that there are associations, there are agencies that are dedicated to receiving report about online gender-based violence or any form of gender-based violence at all, and then that there are support groups, there are people who can actually support. Okay, so if you don't know these things, then you don't even know if it's a crime, and you don't know what next, like you don't know the next steps, okay, to follow when this happens to you. So those are one of the reasons why this keeps happening. And then I heard when Madam Faith talked about that there are laws. Of course, Nigeria, we have a lot of laws. We have a lot of regulations, governing the gender-based violence, violence against as the VAP, violence against persons. However, it's funny that the same people some of the same people who are custodians of this law are also perpetrators of this crime, right? You go to report a case of rape, you go to report a case of online bullying, and then the police is telling you that not be serious matter now. Oh, that's not be serious matter now. This kind of small matter, they come report. So even some of the custodians of the law don't even know that these things are a crime. So I feel like the agencies involved in making these rules need more education to the custodians of the law and also to the public to know that, hey, this is a crime, this is where you can report, and these are the consequences of some of these crimes, right? And what else also, about it, like I said, abiding by the laws. We need to be clear on the consequences. Till now, there are some cases of rape, there are some cases of child abuse, child defilement, there's some cases of even abuse on sexual workers, abuse on person, like your even relationships, somebody you're in a relationship with, abuse between partners, intimate partners. A lot of them are just being struck off, right? Because the law is not strong on it, and the consequences are not even stringent. So people are not encouraged to actually chase these procedures, because hey, you're going to get to a point where you get stuck, and there's nobody to attend to your problem anymore. However, there are some cases that have gained social media visibility, and those ones are taken up to the end. How about those people who don't have the luxury of their cases going viral on the internet or on social media? So that's why the agencies involved have to do extra work to make sure that the law is clear, the consequences of the law is clear, and justice is served for everybody who makes a report. Okay, and also support, even support from your from your own circle is not even there, right? If you're there to come out and say, yes, I was, like when you're bullied online, for example, you don't even have the support of even your immediate circle to speak for you, because nobody wants to be associated with something as dirty as that. So it's very important that we know that we can have friends and family to support, and we also have support groups. In fact, we have Votrons that can, like if you report a case of online violence against any gender at all, there are people online who will take it up and make sure that they see the end to it. Also, enough about the perpetrators and the enablers. How about yourself? Okay, it's very important to know that there's something to be able to identify online gender-based violence forms of any form. Educate yourself about it, okay, and find out, you have to seek this information. If the information doesn't come to you, you have to seek out this information. Find out how you can prevent, yourself from, getting being a victim of this online, gender-based violence. Okay, you have to learn how to prevent and also educate yourself on how to respond to it. And it's also important to note that online gender-based violence can have serious and long-lasting effects on your mental health, on your self-esteem, and your sense of safety. So you need to know that it's not just about just being bullied online or just being sexually harassed online. I mean, I would not forget, I've had a lot of cases, right? But there's a particular one that was very, traumatic for me, even as a doctor. So sometimes I take online consults and someone sends me a message on my WhatsApp. The first message I see, right, is a picture of his genitals. Okay. And for like 1 week, I kept on blocking this person. I kept on, change as in like, blocking any number. He comes up with a new number and he just keeps sending these big videos. And honestly, I was traumatized because of the frequency, because of the because of the intensity. This person would call me like 20 times in 1 minute. No matter what I do, he would keep calling and he would keep calling. And it messed with my mental health for a while. I mean, I'm a strong person. I've seen a lot, I use the social media a lot. But this one was just had to manage because it was really, really intense, right? So it messes up with your mental health, and then okay, and it just, invasion of privacy, really. So you need to, set boundaries, right? So that you're not exposed to some of this online bullying. But I always say there's more, you can't really control what comes to you. You can only control what you take in, right? So that's why it's very important, to know that the most important factor here is yourself. You have to grow your self-esteem. You have to have some self-love. You have to have some self-awareness and build your mental health to detect a violent environment, to detect when someone is trying to troll you, to detect when someone is just, intentionally or non intentionally, trying to, perpetrate any form of online gender based violence at you. And it's very important so that you can resist it, you can, like, so let's start over. Identify it, resist it, prevent it, or report it. Okay, so that has to do a lot to do with self. I would say I'll just add a few things about my personal experience again. Yeah, because I am very visible on the social platform, on social media. Sometimes when I give opinions, sometimes even when I give my health tips, right? Some people would come and troll me for no reason. They would call me names, they would, insult me because I'm a woman and I dare to have a voice. They would sexually harass me. I mean, I've mentioned every other ways you can sexually harass someone, so calling names, body shaming, making misogynist comments and all of that. But there's something I do. On no account would I respond. I would not let it get to me, and I would not respond, like the shalaye method of, then trying to explain to you. You call me an ashawo, and I come and start making a whole post explaining to you that I'm not an ashawo. I don't understand. Like, I'm not going to let that bother me. Okay, you're making a whole post telling me how, bringing my private issues that you think you know about, and just making unfounded statements about me and my person. I would never make a post to address that. The only time I would even, respond to trolls or respond to bullies or respond to people who harass me is when I just want to cruise, right? I will say something like, "Oh yeah, go and call police or go to court." Or I'll just make some funny thing, some funny comment about it, but making sure that it doesn't get to me. And if it's a really, serious issue that is threatening my mental health, or that is having to do with defamation of clear defamation of character, I would address that, but I would address that the right way. but I won't let it, get me to the point where I lose my self-esteem, I lose my self-worth, or any of that. So it's very important that you guide your heart, your mind, guide, what filter what comes to you and what goes out. But in cases where this is a clear case of sexual harassment, is a clear case of gender-based violence against you, in any form at all, you need to know that there are agencies, there are authorities that you can report to, and you must be ready to follow it through, because you're going to meet a lot of what they call it now, distractions, and you're going to meet a lot of barricades, right? So I guess I have been able to talk about the online gender-based violence. And if you have any other questions, please, you can use the conversation box, or you can ask me later. So I don't know if I'm going to be speaking after now. My social media handles are at Healthtainer. If you have any questions, please, even after this this session, feel free to mention me, ask your questions, and I would answer as much as I see. So thank you for having me, and remember, protect yourself so that you can resist these forms of online gender-based violence. Thank you.
Please, thank you so much, Ma. I was listening and I was like, wait, though, is it that all of us we've been doing or we've been carrying out forms of GBV and we don't even realize it at some point? Because sometimes you come online and then someone will say something and then you go, men has come, women has come, and then we don't realize what's going on. To us, it's all fun and games.
We're calling out what we also do. So we need to inform.
Yes,
That's why I said education, re-education, unlearn, relearn, and just know that, okay, this is
exactly.
what we're
So
doing. Yeah.
I really appreciate. And there's this phrase you made and it's stuck. There's this you said identify, resist, prevent, and report. Like that's like the
Let me
sequence
add
of
support too. Seek
okay,
support. Yeah.
okay. So that's making it
And
5
then
now.
don't be a part and don't be guilty of the same thing that you are calling out.
Okay. Thank you. So those 5 points now, please, everybody. I hope you're sticking with everybody. I hope everybody's understanding. Yeah, see, when I said this was going to be a value-packed session, I think people underestimated what I was talking about. Please, can we give a round of applause for our 2 speakers, because we've had really amazing speakers. There was a lot. When Barrister Faith was talking, I was like, Kai, I should have done law and medicine together. Maybe I would have found a way around it. So that I'll be talking like this too, so that when I'm talking, everybody will be saying yes. My legal luminary. I mean, yes, people shall get it. So thank you very much, Mas. I genuinely appreciate. And please, if you have any questions, we don't want to interrupt or make it rowdy. So please, if you have any questions, drop them in the chat box. They will reply. Our speakers are wonderful. You see, when you use passion to do something, you are seeing the way they are teaching us like children, which we are. They are teaching us to the barest, the basics, and we understand. And like, this whole thing that you can never know it all. That's just one thing I want everybody to understand. My executives are here, and we are steady doing campaigns on general forms of sexual and reproductive health violation, and then you realize that you think you know something, and then there's something to correct, there's something else to do, and all of that. So yes, it's really amazing. And one of my executives is supposed to give us a rundown of our GBV research compendium that will soon be released by my standing committee. Please, can we give a round of applause for Scora? Because, like I said, we're working on a research compendium based on the replies we got from the GBV form. It's going to be a really nice book. By the time you see this book, you'll be amazed at what you're seeing. Like, we don't even know how far it's going to go yet, but you guys just stay tuned. Scora has nice stuff for you. And our third speaker today is Mrs. Ofor Betta, who works with the NAPTIP. She's the head of NAPTIP Liaison Office for Ebonyi State, and she's really amazing and is dedicated in curbing all forms of gender-based violence, most especially in line with the goals and aims of NAPTIP, women and child trafficking, and so many cases like this. So she'll be having a 15 minutes talk for us now, and I want us to pay attention. I don't know who knows so much about child trafficking. I know we keep on hearing it. And you know that time that I remember during election time, we made jokes about it when some of us did not like the outcome of the elections, and then we just put can we go to Italy now? That means we have an idea what it's talking about. We have so many things that we know about these things, but I don't think we know it deep enough. So Mrs. Beta Ofo, please, can you have the floor now? Thank you very much.
Ina ke rubuta?
Okay.
Okay, if she's not
Hello.
available. Okay.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon,
Please,
ma'am.
can you hear
Thank
me?
you.
Can hear you.
Yes, ma'am, we can hear
Can
you.
you
Good
hear me?
afternoon.
Good afternoon. Thank you once more for welcoming you, your miss. Though I came late, I must apologize for late coming. You know, we work every day, even on Saturdays, until we get what we want, our objective or goal. Thank you for choosing me as one of your speakers. Today, I'm going to be talking on human trafficking and the aspect of GBV. First of all, human trafficking. I don't know if in a layman's language, we could say that human trafficking is the movement of a person from a place to another place. It could be external or internal movement through the use of force, coercion, deceit, for for exploitation. You know, in human trafficking, it has three elements. When you talk about human trafficking, we have the art, we have the means, and we have the purpose. When you talk about art, we are talking about the recruitment process, the transportation, the harboring of a person, the aspect of receipt of a person, and all whatnot. And when you talk about means, we are talking about the threat, the use of force, coercion, abduction, the fraud, the deception in it, abuse of power or using your power to victimize the vulnerable ones, or giving payment or benefit to a person in control of victims. Then the third aspect is the purpose. The purpose could be for the purpose is always one thing, the purpose of exploitation, which could include exploitation of prostitution of others. When I say prostitution of others, you send somebody to prostitute. The proceeds from the prostitution will not be going to the person directly, will be going to one madam or the other that is managing the person. Then we have forced labor, we have slavery or slavery-like practices, and removal of organ and other forms of exploitations. Now, let us talk about the conceptual analysis of human trafficking. Nigeria is a source, a transit and destination country for human trafficking. Women and girls are mostly affected when you talk about human trafficking in our society. And this affects them because they are always regarded as the most vulnerable in the society. The society sees us as weak. But these days, I don't believe we are weak. Women are beginning to speak out when it comes to issues that affect them. Then let us talk about the dimensions of trafficking. Trafficking in persons has several dimensions but could be classified as follows. It could be classified as a moral problem. Human trafficking is viewed as an evil in the society that violates all known moral standards of existence. It could be seen as a crime. Human trafficking is criminalized by almost all the countries across the globe. There are national legislations and international protocols that criminalize trafficking. It could also be seen as a migration problems. Human trafficking is a component of irregular migration, as most traffickers find it easier to manipulate the movement of um, their victims. If the formal process of migration are not observed, it leads to trafficking. It means that one person at some point is trying to victimize the other person. One, when they get to their destination, or before even they get to their destination, they will be controlled by some means. And this means of control mechanism is also applicable in GBV. We will still come to that. The migration problem places a huge responsibilities on migration and border management authorities. It is a big problem that the country is facing. The another dimension is that it could also be seen as a human right problem. Human trafficking is a gross violation of human rights as it originates from the fraudulent rights, as it originates from the recruitment process through exploitation. You know, recruitment through the process of transporting one person from a point by means of, that's the means I listed before, for the purpose of what? Exploitation. These phases, which manifest all through the trafficking journey, that is on transit or from transit to the destination. The experiences of victims, including abuse, violence, debt bondage, blackmail, deprivation of freedom of movement, all reflect violation of fundamental human rights. Then we have another dimension. It is a public order concern. Human trafficking is associated with various public order concerns, such as public health issues, you know, in the process or on transit. Um, what people undergo, especially young girls, during the process of trafficking. If they are trafficking, if they are trafficking one, they don't follow, they usually follow through sea or bush paths. They don't go through the normal process of going to the airport to take their victim through the airport normal route. No. And when they are taken through this desert, some of them, especially women, some are made to urinate, bring out their urine by force so that it will serve as water to other victims, especially male victims. On transit also, they will be made to prostitute so that they will get an income that will keep all other people moving with them, sustain them as per feeding and shelter. So you see, in this in this transit process, it really victimizes more the girl child and children too going with them. It could promote the spread of terrible diseases. Then we have another problem as one of the dimensions of TIP, the labor issue. Trafficking in persons, which is also referred to as human trafficking, is also understood equally affects the lungs. Those are the things that always affect, those are the health issues that accompany trafficking issues. Human trafficking also exposes the child victim to exploitative or hazardous labor, just as I have said before. Exploitation across internal and external borders, the exploitation of the victims at the destination, even during the transit, just I mentioned before. We have the geographical structure of origin, transit, and destination. This country is a transit, the origin, and destination. In Ebonyi, for instance, we have people come to Ebonyi State to recruit their victims. Just few weeks ago, the GBV task force reported cases of victims which were recruited from Ebonyi State to Akwa Ibom State for exploitation. It's always for the purpose of exploitation. So, and we also have the scope. It can be internal and external trafficking. Internal trafficking, when it happens within the states, from state to state, or from one community to another, or when it crosses border, it becomes external trafficking. Then another structure is also, it could also be seen as a commercial imperative. Here, the traffickers approaches trafficking as a business and inevitably have to engage in regular commercial activities like communication. They advertise their product, they advertise what they do, and most times we see their adverts online where they advertise that people should where adverts on jobs and recruitive jobs abroad are placed on adverts on televisions and in our Facebooks. People quickly rush into it to exploit without knowing that when you go there, you don't know. They will not tell you what you will see when you come there. They just give you juicy, um, paint juicy pictures of um, what will attract people to apply. But when you get there, the story will change automatically. It's not only communication we have for transportation, accommodation, and financial transactions. All those things are one of the red flag. We will still come to that. The major trafficking routes in Ebonyi, for instance, we have traffic. It occurs through Ebonyi. They pass through Enugu to Benue State. It could serve as their destination. From Ebonyi State also, we have a destination route that goes from Ebonyi to Cross River, from Cross River to Cameroon as a destination country. We have from Ebonyi also through Bekwara and the rest of them to Benue State. From there, they can move outside the country. So that is why we say that Nigeria is a source, transit, and destination country. Not that Ebonyi State is not a destination country. We know we have quarries and plantations in Ebonyi, like rice mills. We have also quarries. People come there, they employ some children there. I don't know if it still exists, but you know people are watching. It's not only NAPTIP. Even immigration officers go there from time to time. Even police go there from time to time to see before NAPTIP came into Ebonyi State. But now they know that we are watching. As you're watching them, new trend, they are developing new ideas, new trend to to beat the law enforcement. But as they are doing it, we are also diverse um, employing another means to catch them. So major trafficking routes, we have talked about that. The purpose of trafficking. Human beings are trafficked usually for the purpose of exploitation. But let me list the purposes for which human beings are being trafficked and exploited. One, we could be trafficked for sex work outside the country or within the country. Trafficking for begging. You see some of them begging along the street. If you watch them closely, you will see that after begging, they are retiring the money, the proceeds of the begging to someone. It is trafficking because they are exploiting another person's labor sweat. Instead of giving it to the person, they are taking it. You have oga or madam that will they will go and do account for. Then we have trafficking for forced marriages. You see young girls of about 12, 10, 14, they are being forced into marriage because the parents they have some gains. People at times they will see, because you're giving me your land, I'll give you my daughter in return. Because you are protecting me, I'll give you my young daughter in return to go to serve as your wife. We have one of the cases, somebody reported a similar case to us, whereby a young girl was given to um they say is a government worker in return for the services given to the mother of the victim. But in the process, the little girl got pregnant, and during childbirth, she died. Those are the things the vulnerable ones face. Then we have trafficking for forced labor. We have trafficking for rituals. We have trafficking for debt bondage. We have trafficking for organ harvesting. We have trafficking for baby factory. And also we have stages of exploitation in trafficking. We have mentioned that the recruitment stages, the transportation and the exploitation stages. We also have implications. Let's also talk about the implication on national development. But before I come to that, I would like to refresh us on talk about one of NAPTIP's involvement and establishment of NAPTIP Vanguard in schools. NAPTIP started with Unity Schools. We call it ATIP VAB, that's Trafficking in Persons and Violence Against Persons Club. With NAPTIP is establishing it in schools, in universities, and that's tertiary institutions, secondary schools, and even in primary schools. What is the purpose of this establishment of Ativa Club? The Ativa Club, trafficking in persons and violence against persons have devastating implications on the physical, mental, and psychological and emotional general well-being of victims. For that reason, NAPTIP diverse a means to make sure that the message and coming of these menace get to the grassroots. And that was why we started with Unity Schools, but very soon we are going to spread it to all the secondary schools. In Ebonyi State, we have started with the Unity School Izambo Girls Secondary School. We are going to extend it to other Unity schools in Afikpo. Then, after which we'll get to the other secondary schools. The objectives of this establishment of Vanguard is one, to create platform for young people to be involved in the fight against human trafficking and VAP. And when I say VAP, I mean gender-based violence, the violence against persons. Then secondly, to create awareness on the ills of human trafficking among peoples. Another one is to educate students on the risks associated with TIP and VAP. Also to prevent trafficking and violence primarily against young persons, to inform students about where to seek help and the channels for reporting suspected cases of TIP and VAP. Another one is to encourage victims of TIP and those who experience violence within or outside the school to speak out, and to provide guidance and reference materials to club members that can share with wider network. Also to include young people in the conversation and fight against TIP and VAP. Also, um, the NAPTIP also intend to show, um, to give them red flag, make them understand the red flag and recognize when they are being exploited. What are these red flags? Red flags, we can say they are indicators. They refer to those physical and behavioral signs that are exhibited by potential victims of TIP and VAP. Recognizing red flags can make you a lifesaver to someone. Why this is not an exhaustive list, these are some key and red flag that could alert you to a potential abuse situation that should be attended to. The indicators are, okay, people who have been trafficked or violated, they show signs that their movements are being controlled. Controlled by who? By somebody. The person may not be working with them as per working closely with them. The person may be somewhere watching them to pass first before she follows or he follows. Another indicator is that they feel that they cannot leave. They are bonded. They are in a bondage. Another one is that they show fear and anxiety. If you approach them to ask them question, you will see the fear, you see the anxiety. The way they don't give you answers straight, they wait for somebody to answer for them. They will be subjected to violence or threat of violence against themselves or against their family members or loved ones. Most times they hide whatever their oga or madam tell them. The first thing is that they will tell them, don't tell your father or your mother, don't tell your sister. They will stop you from getting to where you, they will stop you from being what you want to be in future. So just keep quiet, make it first, then you let them know. Get there first, then you tell your parents where you are. You see them, those are the ways they use to lure them into being trafficked. Another one is that they suffer injuries that appear to be as a result of assault. Just like in gender-based violence, you see somebody with patches everywhere on the skin. When you ask that person, what happened to you? They say, it's just a minor injury. I got it from this or that. They will not come out to say, this happened to me or that happened to me, because just like we say in our society, women are always regarded as inferior. So even when they are killing you or when they are subjecting you to all forms of exploitation,
Hello, ma. Oh, I
so you
think
keep quiet and endure. But this time we say we are not going to endure. We are going to be speaking up. Another indicator is that they suffer injuries or impairment typical of certain jobs or control measures. We may be engaging ourselves or our families in issues like this.
The network is bad.
Hello, can you hear me?
I'm trying.
Hello? People work for long hours.
hello. Can everybody hear me?
Yep, we can.
Hi, guys. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Yes,
Yes, yes,
we
we
can
can
hear
hear you.
you.
Yes, we can.
Because
Yes,
of time, we won't be able to wait
yes.
for her. I think her network has issues, but if she comes back, then she'll round up. So for now, I think we should call our last speaker, our final speaker for today. So I can promise you that it will be brief, and then we'll round up. And I hope we are all learning a lot, because gender-based violence is vast and inexhaustible. We can't finish it. It's not possible to actually exhaust it. There's a question someone has. I think Bryce, there's a question someone asked. I'll be directing the question to Barrister Faith. She said, what role do you think an organization focused on reproductive health can contribute to ending gender-based violence particularly in families struggling with infertility. Okay, so our final speaker can start speaking. If Barrister Faith is not here, then by the time she comes, she will answer the question. So Mr. Benedict Exong works with United Nations Population Fund as the Program Support Officer, providing support for the implementation of the European Union and joint UN Spotlight Initiative in Ebonyi State. He's an advocate of sustainable development goals, particularly Goal 5, with a demonstrated history of working in the public and development sector to achieve gender equality and ending all forms of violence against women and girls. Benedict is also a public health and health promotion expert and currently serves as the National Public Health Students President. So welcome, Mr. Benedict. We'd love to hear you now.
Okay, thank you so much, Nancy. Nancy, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Thank you. Welcome.
Thank you. And once again, good afternoon, everyone. Before I start, let me specifically thank all the speakers that spoke before me. They have done due diligence to some areas I would have loved to touch. So I think that may help me to reduce the talking time, the time I will spend in this discussion. Let me quickly start by just a brief about my organization. UNFPA is the United Nations Population Fund. It is the United Nations Sexual and Reproductive Health Agency. And UNFPA has 3 transformative goals to attain by 2030. So let me just share this with us. One of them is to end maternal death. That is zero maternal death, then 0 unmet need for family planning, and 0 gender-based violence, including female genital mutilation and other harmful practices against women and girls. And also to bring to your knowledge, UNFPA is the most youthful United Nations organization. By that, I mean that UNFPA has a mission. This mission is to achieve a world where every pregnancy is wanted, every childbirth is safe, and every young person achieves his or her full potential. So you see, it's all inclusive, and young people are also required in this space. And we're talking about the Spotlight Initiative goal. It's actually a multi-year partnership between the European Union and the United Nations, which aims to end all forms of violence against women and girls, still by 2030. So it's the world largest targeted effort towards ending violence against women and girls. And this takes us to this discussion. I wouldn't want to really stretch our time again because we've been here for a while. And it's going to be, ideally, it's supposed to be an interfacing session where I will also be getting responses from the audience so that I will know how I'm progressing. And it's going to be kind of contributory. But because of the setup of this, I will limit it to just getting notifications from your chat box. So there may be questions I would just want to ask, and I want to test your knowledge in certain areas to just see how we are flowing together. So maybe you may just need to write in the chat box that I will get to know that we are following together. So the role of young people in ending GBV is very critical. So Nancy, when I need to ask a question, I will be calling on you to be certain that I'm heard, because earlier on I joined this meeting late because my microphones were not working. So by the time I call your name, if you just respond, I will assume that the rest of the audience are hearing me. Right, Nancy?
Yes, that's fine, sir. That's fine.
Okay, thanks so much. So young people are transforming gender-based violence interventions and preventions. Young people are starting conversations in new ways and also challenging the beliefs and the power structures that inform and fuel gender-based violence. By this, what do we mean? That young people have a critical role in ending gender-based violence. So I cannot start talking about the role we as young people will play in ending gender-based violence without putting a message. We need to fully have an understanding of what GBV is. By the time we understand the rudiments of GBV, it will put you in a position of power where you can empower other young people. So that, young people may be targeted for exercising their human rights, that is pushing for ending GBV. So there is a need to empower young people. There is a need to empower EPSU medical students. There is a need to empower SCORA. How do we put it? SCORA, what? Like if I have to...
NIMSA, SCORA, NIMSA.
SCORA, NIMSA.
Mhm.
And this must feature clearly in our action plans, discussions to end violence and grow our potential by educating us on the concept of gender-based violence. So I just want to, today I just came with a triad. By this triad, I mean there is an underlying concept of going about GBV in this context. We call it the GBV triad. Gender. There must be gender involved in the conversation, and there should also be violence. So we are talking about gender-based violence. So we can talk about them independently. And what makes it an abuse, gender-based violence, when there is an equal power and unequal power in between them. So the way gender is being related to cause these abuses amount to gender-based violence. So that's to say, a lady and a man and a woman may fight, and it doesn't amount to gender-based violence. But I'll try to keep it as short as I can. And I really would have loved to share my screen, but that will make it too bulky. So there is also a UN report that there will be about 1.3 billion youth, which is a huge positive force for change. Youth have a great role to play in preventing violence. So we have to work together to achieve this. So I will start by talking about the concept of gender. So I would just want to be certain that we are all on the same page. I will want us to just write what we understand by gender on the screen. Let's try to create a difference between gender and sex before we start this conversation. I will just need to get input from 2-3 persons on the screen, then we'll proceed. My screen is not moving. Nancy, can you read them for me, if you have any?
All right. Let me see. Definitions haven't come in yet, so.
Okay, I think.
Okay.
If there are no definitions, maybe we can proceed just to save time.
All right.
So gender-based violence is an umbrella term for any harmful act that is perpetrated against a person's will, and that is based on socially ascribed gender. That's to say, there should be a gender in between it. So if you are abused on grounds of your gender, that was done to you because you are a lady. Clearly, it's gender-based violence. It was done to you because you are a man. It's gender-based violence. But it was just maybe someone went to steal something and was beaten along the way. That's not gender-based violence. And so we'll just talk about, so the concept of gender, I said, is socially ascribed. Could be man, woman, boy, or girl. So it's the way the society sees you. Whereas sex is assigned at birth, it's your biological characteristics, whether male or female. Whereas gender has to do with the way the society sees you. And the key concept I will be discussing right now is how does this amount to gender-based violence? Let's just talk about power briefly. the concept of power. So when there is an unequal power, we get to see that it amounts to gender-based violence. So power involves the ability or skill or the capacity to make decisions and take action. That's physical force or strength. So now we have different forms of power. Like, let me start with the social or community power. This social or community power would do with pressure and or bullying, all forms of social power. Teachers, we talked about sex for grades, right? Parents are very powerful because of their roles in the family and community. So that has to also do with community power. We talked about, we are going to talk about economic power. Economic power has to do with the control of money or access to goods, services, money, or favors. I don't want to jump into what Dr. Kelechi had earlier talked about, that cyberbullying and how it relates to sexual abuse. It will defragment into sexual abuse, sexual discrimination, and all that. So we have husbands and fathers often hold the economic power in the family. So there are certain decisions you want to do, and you wouldn't have done it, but because somebody is exercising power over you, either because the person is economically powerful than you, would lead to you making decisions that ordinarily you wouldn't do. And that means you were also abused on grounds on the fact that the person had more economic power than you. Political power is also one of it. And we also have gender-based, that's social. When you look at, in most cultures, males usually in a more powerful position than females. I don't know whether you agree with me on that. So undue use of this power leads to harm. Gender-based violence causes harm, which includes physical injuries. Of course, this is as a result of physical abuse. It can also lead to psychological trauma, which is emotional abuse. It can also lead to economic hardship, which is economic abuse. And of course, rejection and social stigma. So you look at the way the triad is intertwined, you get to know that violence is actually the use of force or pressure on grounds of gender. It amounts to gender-based violence. So the key take home I would want us to get here is that gender-based violence is referred to as a shadow pandemic. By pandemic, we understand that a pandemic is actually an outbreak of a disease across international boundaries. That is, it's a global thing. It's not just in Ebonyi State. It is not just in Nigeria. It is not just in Africa, although because of our socio-cultural structure, Africa tends to be looked at as the one with more issues of GBV. But we also have other forms of GBV globally, but in different angles. So we need young people to come together as agents of change in their respective communities. As students, we are champions in our respective communities. There are lots of other young people who are out of school. They look up to you as champions. You pass several forms of messages to them unknowingly by way of being a pace setter. And especially for some of us on this call who are medical students, you get to see that you have an influence in educating. Our role to ending GBV, we have to be there's a way I'm trying to put this, who stopped the killing of twins in Nigeria, Mary Slessor, right? We have to be the Mary Slessor of our time. You create your own star, make your name and put it on the sands of time that you were part of the mission to end gender-based violence. So we push for this. People listen to you. So you have to use the opportunity, the audience you have, to educate them positively. We can also make good use of our respective social media handles by ensuring that we get to reach out to key populations other young people during our discussions to push this value message. Even on Twitter, we have, I think I will be putting up our Twitter handles here. Okay, Nancy, Scora has our Twitter handle. UNFPA has a Twitter handle, an Instagram handle, and not just UNFPA, even on your respective individual handles. You can always push for social and value messages like NGBV, stop female genital mutilation. Globally, even in Nigeria, if you had looked at the build up to the election, in as much as I don't want to talk about election in Nigeria, but if you look at the build up to the election, you get to see that the youth of Nigeria is a critical population. We have to harness this potential that we have. And one of the demographic dividend agenda which the UN promotes is meaningful inclusion of young people in nation building. We cannot say we are leaders of tomorrow if we are not leading today, if we are not leaders today, if we cannot make a change today. So aside pushing for all the SDGs, we have to push them as if SDG goal 1 to 17 should be achieved by 2030, and we will be the ones to live in the future. Most of the elderly people we look at, the older population we look at, may not be the ones to live in the future with us. So we create the world that we will live in tomorrow. We start taking responsibilities for leadership today. We start taking responsibility to change the narrative today. And we are all already in a position of power, if you agree with me. In a position of power means you have access to the right messages already. You are more informed. What is required of you is to push these messages, snowball the idea across, push it through using all the media, all the medium you can. So you use different social media, any opportunity you have to speak, and you push for it. GBV create a feeling of fear, anxiety, and loss of self-esteem, and reduces our sense of power. So it is our response, in fact, a collective responsibility. I would say it is our collective responsibility to create a safer world for ourselves. UNFPA had supported this by creating safe spaces in schools. We've had the establishment of 12 safe spaces in schools across Ebonyi State. I know that the Spotlight project covers 4 LGS originally, which is Ezza South, Abakaliki, Ohozara, and Onitsha. And 3 safe spaces were created in each of these LGS. In secondary schools, where students can just go talk about their reproductive health and rights and bodily autonomy and a lot of other discussions where they could just be safe to be aware about the subject of GBV, intimate partner violence, sexual violence, sexual abuse, and a lot of others to talk about. And UNFPA too had supported, still currently supporting the that's fistula repairs, obstetric fistula repairs, that's in the National Obstetric and Fistula Center in Ebonyi State here. So we pay for the free surgeries, free fistulas, because fistula is also a form of abuse when women are leaking urine and all that and are pushed back in the society and nobody wants to identify with them. So these are surgeries we also pay for, all efforts put together to ensure that women are not left behind. Nobody is left behind. We also, based on the earlier goal I stated, that we also push to end maternal death. So my organization is also supporting MPDSR, which is maternal perinatal death surveillance and reviews, to identify the cause of death in most of the health institutions in the states. So Nancy, can you still hear me? Am I talking to myself?
No, we are listening. We are listening.
At some point, I thought I was talking to myself. So we also support fistula repairs. Sorry, I was talking about MPDSR, So when the cause of this death is identified, of course, it allows us to reprogram. It allows us to prevent further occurrence by trying to take out the previous cause. So by the time people say, oh, this death was as a result of this, and a lot of health centers or health institutions, hospitals report about this particular one, we can see how we can support on that particular issue to reduce or eliminate. Let's use reduce, but we strive to eliminate, but making efforts will go a long way in reducing until we are able to totally eliminate, because even in developed countries, we still have maternal death, but grossly reduced. So if we can achieve this, it's progressive. We know that by 2030, we will be able to completely eliminate maternal death. No woman is worth dying in the process of bringing forth life. So it's a form of GBV because they are disproportionately affected, and it happens to only women that get to die when they are giving forth life. So it's a form of GBV if we let them die. And I talked about the issue of unmet need for family planning. Every young person in the reproductive age who wants family planning services should be able to access it when they want it, how they want it, where they want it. And in order not to push this through, because if you leave me here, I'll still keep talking and talking. I think I will just stop here and take questions, and we'll get to talk more as it's progressed. Thank you so much, and I'm happy I was able to make it to this webinar. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Benedict. Thank you for everything. Thank you for teaching us so much. And does anybody have any question? You can ask your questions now. You can turn off your mics. You can ask your questions now before we round up fully. That's so far from beginning to end. If you have any questions that you feel should be addressed, then you can turn off your mics and go ahead and ask your questions. So from the silence, I'm guessing nobody has any question. So that means our speakers were explicit enough, and we probably understood, because personally I understood everything they said. And from our last speaker, Mr. Benedict, he said we should create a world we'll live in. It's our world. It's no longer, we are all leader of tomorrow that we have been singing since secondary school, since primary school. The tomorrow is now. That's just what I say. I believe the tomorrow is now. Like, we started living the tomorrow. So all these things, all these activities we carry out, advocating for different things on different bases, we are doing this to create a better world. We are doing this to create okay, someone raised a hand. Chijoke Ugoji Kalu. You can speak up. Can I hear your question? So as I was saying, the activities Scora has are bordered around everything concerning reproductive health and rights. And you can look at our activities for this month. We had GBV Awareness Month, Sexual Assault Prevention Month, and STD Awareness Month. We just concluded our STD Awareness Month, and I can tell you that it was amazing. If you see the programs people organize, MSAs organized, very beautiful programs. And I want to commend Rivers State University. They carried out a physical campaign against syphilis. So you see, these things, they are not easy, but yet we keep doing them. And if you look at our calendar, you see it's structured in such a way that we learn, we implement, we learn, we implement. So these things we've learned concerning GBV today, it doesn't end here. To show that you truly learned all these things, you are supposed to implement it in our future programs. We have programs on abortion, on safe abortion. We have programs on teen pregnancy prevention, a lot of things. And there'll be a lot of amazing webinars like this with speakers that know a lot about these things, and will always be there to learn from them. And once again, I want to appreciate everybody for being here today. And there'll be a post-evaluation form. It will be sent out later by tonight or tomorrow, which whenever you see the post-evaluation form, please kindly fill it. It will be very important. And I also like to say that I'll tell us a little bit about Scora before I close, because I should have done that at the beginning, but I'll just do it here. So Scora is a working group, is a standing committee in NIMSA and International Federation of Medical Student Association. You can see the document I'm sharing right now. You can go through it. You can take a screenshot. It has everything. Our names have constantly evolved based on what we've wanted. It started from being SCOAS, that's on AIDS, and it has been going. We've been evolving. We've been changing our name. We've been getting better. So you see, we've been growing in the reproductive health space. We are not stagnant. And how do we grow? We grow from experience. We grow from interest. We grow from advocacy, we go from campaigns, we go from different things, and our activities have been directed towards promotion of healthy sexual and reproductive behavior, prevention of HIV and STIs, prevention of unsafe abortion, and appropriate use of contraceptives. We are fighting against domestic violence, female genital mutilation, and trying to get access to good and proper maternal health and women's rights, gender equality, and the rest. So once again, I want to give special appreciation to all my executives. They've been amazing. Like my assistants, the publicity we did on this program, it was very beautiful. Alberto, Mary Joanne, Sylvia, my secretary, my wonderful secretary, he's amazing, Frank. All the regional assistants, very amazing people. You guys did a great job. The NORA assistants, I must say, you people are so amazing. You people have been the best team anybody can ever ask for. You guys work so hard, and it's beautiful to see. Our programs coordinator and our programs team, I can't neglect the importance of that team. Karimat has been amazing, and the organized very amazing programs, made sure that we are steady on our toes in Scora, and we are doing a great job. And we should remember that the vision of Scora is to produce a world in which every individual is empowered to exercise their sexual and reproductive health and rights equally, free from stigma and discrimination. And our mission is to provide our members with the tools necessary to advocate for sexual and reproductive health rights within their respective communities in a culturally sensitive fashion. So that we pay attention to the culture of the community, to the culture of the people around. And we accomplish this through building the skills and knowledge of our members, providing trainings like this, and on trainings on comprehensive sexuality education and other reproductive health issues, exchanging ideas and projects, as well as drafting policies and working with our external partners in order to create change at the local, regional, and international level. So I want to encourage all of us that this is not the end of the road, and NIMSA will bring up more programs. NIMSA Scora will bring up more programs that would grow us, that would learn. And IFMSC, we should get involved. We should join these small working groups. These small working groups are really amazing. So once you know you have time, I know how tasking our schedule as medical students can be. We don't even have time for ourselves, not talk of all these extracurriculars, but somehow passion makes us find a way around it. And you guys know what we say is the love of Scora that keeps us going. So yes, that has been our slogan from the beginning of the tenure. Just you can ask before we close the space, and if you don't, you can now. We've come to the end of the session. Bye, guys.